Well, hello, everybody out there, and good morning. This is Monty Anderson, your host here at 412 Productions, and we are going to be kicking it off with Monkey Peak. This is Antarctic Press Day. It's a little late in review from me, but that is okay. Just because I had to digest this book. This is Monkey Peak, Volume 1 by Koji Shinosaka, and the artwork by Akiro Kumeda, translation by Andrew Hall, Phase 6, and lettering Alfred Perez. Now, why did it take me so long to get this post out there to the masses on this review of Antarctic Press's Monkey Peak Volume 1? Well, I will tell you. 220 pages. That's why. Oh my goodness. Great story so far. I believe if I had to guess, since it is a volume collected one, that the 10 chapters in here were actually 10 books at one point in time. Now I don't know if they were comic books. I don't know if they were, you know, manga style books, or put into 1, 2, 3, and then you had your manga, your book, or whatever. But I'm loving this book so far. I did not print out all 220 pages, although it looks like it. I printed out just certain chapters and little aspects thereof. The artwork is really cool. The one thing that I would, for me, as the creator and artist of this, I would have wanted to see what they did on the back or the front cover, because this is actually the end of the book that I'm getting ready to show you. But it's Monkey Peak Volume 1. And you see how it's got the red and the black in it with the blood splatter everywhere like this? I would have continued that through the book. Okay? I would have put that through the entire book to show where the blood splatter is, instead of just a black like they do in the book. But that's okay. It's not my book. That's the only real drawback that I see to this, is that I would have put that red throughout, and would have popped where that blood was in the book, because I'm a horror fanatic, and this book is right up my alley with this, because it is horror. It is about this monkey in the jungles, and we'll get into that here in just a minute. See, this book was first published in Japan and back in 2017. Um, and you know, it was, I guess, a good hit, a good seller for them. Don't know if it was because of the blood and guts and stuff like that, but you know, you got right here. This is the cover to the book. Again, don't know if it started out as a comic book or a manga or whatever, however it started back in 2017, but I bet you can find the originals out there if you really look. And I'm actually going to look, because I like it. Now, this is in 10 parts. You've got Mount Shiraba, or Shirabi. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is Yanaguchi. Chapter 3 is Yanaguchi Precipice 1. Chapter 4 is Yanaguchi Precipice 2. Chapter 5 is Front Peak 1. So you see they're in the mountains. And then the chapter 6 is Front Peak 2. Chapter 7, Front Peak 3. Chapter 8, Front Peak 4. Chapter 9, Front Peak 5. And Chapter 10 is Front Peak 6. So you see how it's going. So that's how it lines up right there. So there you go. All right. So as it kicks off, you get a couple of shots right off the bat before it actually gets to chapter 1. And they're already in the mountains, and things are already happening. You know, right here. I mean, this is just some of the artwork. It's very, very typical manga artwork, but it's very cool because there's so much detail. And the thing I like about this is that it encompasses, you know, the style out there because there's so much detail with the pen and ink work, with the ink, with the paintbrush, because and you'll get to see that here in just a minute because it's ink wash is almost what it feels like to me, and it's very cool style. I like it. And I'm not one who really actually liked manga style in the early days of my youth, if you will. I kind of shunned away from it, because it's not my culture. It's not my cup of tea. It's not any of that good stuff. But as I've matured over the years, I have come to the realization that it's a good style. It lends itself very, very well to everything, and it looks cool. I mean, it's very awesome style, and I should have given it a shot earlier on. Now I gave some of it a shot, especially with Antarctic Press titles, um, because of uh, certain characters, Warrior Nun Ariella, those type things. Now I didn't get a whole lot into the rest of the Antarctic Press titles, like Ninja High School and things of that nature, but had I really took a deep dive into some of this stuff, I probably would have, you know, had a huge collection of manga, right off the bat, and Akira and things of that nature, manga and anime. Now this is a 2-page spread here, telling you about chapter one. He's wanting him to keep a smile. They've fallen down the mountain. He's got rock and debris down his back, all over his back, right there, and it's still coming down. And he's talking about keeping that smile as he's basically doing a push up on top of this other guy, you know. And his face is all semi bloody already, right here. And the mountaintop is still coming down on top of him, you know. So they got a bunch of debris on top of them right now. Then we do a flashback to 8 years later, or a flash forward 8 years later, from that moment. And we see a whole group of people walking through the woods right here, and you see the Mount Shirabi summit, 7.6 kilometers away. Everybody's huffing and puffing. You got old people, you got young people, you got people in masks, you got all this different stuff going on. But everybody's looking exhausted in this picture. And like I said, what I love is the use of the pen and ink wash, and they did use. I'm gonna say they went ahead and used some of the sticker stuff. I don't exactly remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but it's a typical manga esque thing that you mask around your figures, and it gives the motion and it gives your clouds and different things like that. Now again, this could have been done in like Procreate or another program, but it's very well maintained here. Like right here in this panel, you see it right here in this section right here. But the pen and ink work is very awesome because you're about to see it here, right here, where they used a paintbrush to make the trees as everybody's rustling through the brush. But if you look here on these trees, this is all paintbrush strokes with pen and ink, well, with ink right there. And it really lends itself well to this panel because the tree work, the mountains, and everything like that is really well done. And then the detail that they get down into this, the snaps on the backpacks, the down to the shoes, and then even further up in the distance, you can still see, you know, all of the little details going up all these backpacks, all the way up, even in the far distance out there. So it's very, very cool stuff. And then they're all happy because they did it. All right, phones in the bag, everyone. What? Basically. And they're like, phew. So they're taking up everybody's cell phones right here. But again, very, very typical manga style, manga style work. But again, had I gotten into this stuff way, way earlier on in my career, not career, but I mean, this is my career now, but had I done that, you know, um, had I gotten into this stuff a long time ago, I would probably have a huge collection of manga today, in my library. I've got a few books here and there of manga style works, but it's all more recent stuff. It's none of the older stuff, and that's on me because I should have looked into all this stuff a little earlier on, as a comic book fanatic, um, because manga is comic books. But to me, it just wasn't my forte. It wasn't my cup of tea, if you will. Even when Marvel did the whole manga scene, that wasn't. I never bought any of those books. Let's just be honest. When Joe Madura first came on the scene, I wasn't a huge fan of his either. But since he did a huge run in Uncanny X Men, I had to pick up his work, you know, and I grew to like his work. I didn't say love, I said like. Um, and but the older I get, the more it grows on me because there's so much you can do with the paintbrush, you know. And being an artist as well, I can glean stuff from manga to put into my works, in today's stuff that I'm working on, my own comic book and things of that nature. And you know, a horror comic book that I'm getting ready to work on with a movie producer friend of mine, that's going to lend itself into this because I'm sure you've heard of Jali, Jae Lee is his last name. Phenomenal, phenomenal artist. That's the style I'm going to try to emulate. I will not be able to touch his work because he is the master at it. And that's the style we're going to emulate for this horror western that we're working on. Or I'm going to try anyway. Let's put it that way. But it all translates to had I started getting, manga books early on, I see the transition between the two in my work, as it is today. Now, my work isn't manga, my work isn't anime or anything like that, but could I do it? Of course I could. Um, and especially big group settings like this where you don't have to put any faces, on people. Like here, they're all clapping. You don't really see any faces. You see the the outlines and stuff like that, but you don't see the actual faces. Just like in this next panel over here, the top panel, where they're getting because this is a work summit for these guys. They have climbed this mountain to be in a whole group setting with each other, and you got your mentor, your trainer down here with his polo shirt on. It says, "Go ahead, sir. Ahem. As you're aware, all of us at Fujitana, Fujitani Pharmaceuticals face an uphill battle. We need to make a change. Unity. What do we need to transform ourselves? Unity. Not a single one of us was left behind. I'm impressed. Well done, everyone." So, I'm not sure if this is your one of your leaders of this pharmaceutical group, or if this is just a trainer that they brought in, one of those motivational speakers who makes you do stuff to get as a cohesive group and all that good stuff. But that's what's going on in this comic book to start out, or this manga book, not comic book, to start out. So you've got them climbing a mountain as a group from this pharmaceutical crew. And No, not everybody's happy. Not everybody's going to be happy. It's just like in life. You're not going to have people that are happy 100% of the time, no matter what. And then you got people that are like, and being part of a group doesn't suit me. Huh. Honestly, he's right. Those type things. And so, again, there's not a whole lot of action happening here, but there's a whole lot of stuff happening. There's not like fights. There's not like um, people running around. There's not, it's all just boom, just sitting here. You know, conversations happening, the build up to what's getting ready to happen. um, he sees this girl in the crowd, and he's infatuated with her, and they're all. This guy's excited about the future of the pharmaceutical company that they all work for. And this is what I was talking about when he sees this girl right here. He gives her a little smile. Now, we're going to fast forward to basically chapter 2 from chapter 1. There's a whole lot of dialogue in there, and if you want to get into it, go for it. I would suggest going and finding this book. And um, so we fast forward several pages, and we get into, and this isn't chapter 2 just yet. This is right before chapter 2, when we meet the monkey of Monkey Peak. A very foreboding character, and he's awakened in the middle of the night to this creature outside. He sees the shadow out there. So you see this big foreboding black hole of a figure out there. Well, then it comes to light and steps closer to him, and he sees it walking by. And you see this huge machete in his hand. And then he sees it just continuing to walk on by. But that would be a scary sight in the middle of the night, not gonna lie. And then he starts seeing all these voices. What the hell? No way! What's wrong? Get help! Oh God! And then the next panel is where the blood and gore happens. We see all these dead bodies, blood splatter everywhere. We don't know exactly what's happened because they don't show that per se yet. And we just see a whole bunch of blood and guts. Then you got people about to throw up. You get an aerial view right here of all the bodies. But again, horror manga right here. As it says, indeed, it marked the first day. Marked in blood the first day that the 36 remaining members of Fujitana Pharmaceuticals would desperately fight for survival against the demon monkey. And this is before we get to chapter 2. This is the end of chapter 1 right here. There's 36 remaining members of this pharmaceutical company, and including the mentor and some of the group that we saw right off the bat. So they just lost most of their party in book 1. And hold on just a second. I'm trying to figure out where this dog barking is coming from. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about this, folks. Actually, I can pause it right here. Hold on. Okay, so now we start with chapter 2, and that is where we left off with the end of chapter 1, with all the blood-stained people running around, people starting to throw up. You know, and this is what makes the story good, is because people are reacting, to the whole situation. You got people about to throw up and gag and all that good stuff. And, that makes a good horror movie. Or horror movie. A good could turn this into a horror movie pretty easy. Um, and it would be pretty cool if they did, you know. But you got this right here. The monkey demon beast is being talked about, by the guy that saw him walk by, and as they're over these dead bodies. But I'm loving the style. I'm loving the way it looks. You get your typical manga looks and expressions, as well as you get the more um, serious and comic book style work in here. You know, so and she saw the monkey too, as she's explaining it in here. So we've had several people that have seen the creature, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody is, and these are the motion lines that I was talking about earlier as well. You can see how it's all going down. Now, some of this can be done with pen and ink strokes, but a lot of it is done in Procreate, and it's also done in um, those press-ons that I was talking about before. And again, you see a better representation down here of those speed lines, motion lines, and things like that. But you got Mr. Polo gear, or Mr. Polo here, right here on this corner's panel. You know, it's dangerous to be walking here after dark. So he even knows that it's dangerous. We skip forward ahead towards chapter 3. Again, if you want all the dialogue and stuff like that, I'm just showing you some of the cool pages and stuff like that from each chapter because it is very cool. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's 220 pages in this book. So 10 books pressed into one graphic novel, if you will. And this is the first volume. Again, this book was originally printed back in 2017. So that's nearly 10 years ago, folks. We're in 2025, 2017 to 2025. 2 more years and this thing will be 10 years old. So, just ahead, waiting for them, was the advanced climbing site, the Yanaguchi Precipice. And that's where we get into the Yanaguchi Precipice number 1. So, it's showing them go down this steep incline of a bridge all the way down. And people are, unsteady and unsure as they're going down. So that makes it realistic. I'm sure that this really does exist out there. This precipice. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't look into that, but you know. So then you get chapter 3 right here about the precipice, and you see how steep it is coming down. For everybody, making sure that they've got their sure footing, and this one guy's got his walking cane, and I don't know how good it's going to do on this trail, but it's keeping him steady and upright. But again, the pen and ink work is phenomenal. The wash, the way they lay it all in there with the wording and the word balloons and stuff like that. These are supposed to be stairs. It's a sheer cliff. This is the Yanaguchi Precipice that Shirabi's known for. And he's trying to get everybody to come back. That's why he's starting to yell at the end down here. People are starting to turn around and, look back, like in this panel here. They're starting to look back because he's saying, come back now. They're talking about it. You're going on the wrong path. And so he slides down, trying to get people. He's moving down super fast. Right there. And so he's going down, trying to get people. He's trying to get everybody to come back. But again, this is your typical manga stuff. This is your stuff that made manga great. All the action, all the wide-eyed, all the yelling, all the different looks and things like that. Like in this one panel right here, you know, that's what makes things great. So again, we fast forward through some parts of the book to get towards the end when everybody is trying to figure out what path they're supposed to be on, where they're actually going. And then we get some blood splatter happening in the back. You see a whole group of people back here. And then next thing you see is just two people, or just a small group of people, because you see a big machete coming up here. And then you see blood splatter going everywhere. Again, my type of book, because it is bloody. And then, boom, you get the monkey demon right there. Blood, another dead body happening. Everybody's starting to turn around. And then we get a close-up of this guy's face with him smiling. Basically, people are still not still trying to figure out what's going on. You see the machete swinging in the wind. And it hits its mark. Blood splatter again everywhere. Chaos ensues. Very awesome stuff. Again, the expressions on the monkey beast's face are, just your deadpan look, if you will. And so, um, I love this next shot coming up because it embodies the the stoicness of this character, the beast, the monkey beast, and it's just got that killer look on its face, and I like it. It's one of my. If I was going to get a tattoo, that was what it would be right there. This little guy, this face right here, that image right there. I mean, look at that thing. But they all take off. They all start going down the steep steps, and then what happens? The worst happens. They all fall down because everybody's trying to go at once. The bridge can't take that type of weight and just collapses under the weight of everyone. And so, it's very cool. And I'm digging this. I'm enjoying this book. Then we're at chapter 4, The Precipice Part 2. Everybody's falling down. This is the same panel we saw at the other page. Everybody's falling down. There's some hurt people. You got broken arms. You got bloody heads. You got broken legs. You got all kinds of stuff. You got some dead people in here, I'm sure. But again, the pen and ink work is very phenomenal. I mean, just look at it. Just the different pen and ink style that comes in through here. And it's just very cool. I love it. And then there's the looking back up these steep steps. He sees the figure starting to emerge right here. That one little black speck up there as he's looking up. And then, boom, it comes into focus as it's going to be coming down towards them. The Monkey Beast. So this is a very cool book. I'm liking it. I'm loving it. Again, this is something that I would have picked up. And we fast forward again towards chapter 5. I'm not going to give you everything in the middle because there's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of running around the woods, the mountains, and things like that, trying to get away from this beast. And we're going to go through all 10 of these chapters relatively quickly. Like I said, warning. Numerous steep slopes ahead. Accidents occur here every year due to fatigue. Those not in excellent physical condition should turn back. And everybody's looking at this thing because some of them are not in peak performance or peak physical condition. So that's how we end chapter 4 into chapter 5, and we're all looking at it. People are already sweating to death already, and we've lost more members. There was 36. Now we've lost more. So I don't know how many people are left, but just here it's a handful, like 2 handfuls maybe, 10, 15, 20 people tops right now. They're trying to figure out how they can call for help, Again, we're not going to go through everything that's happening in here. We're at already chapter 6. the front peak 2. So you already see what kind of a steep angle this is going to be. But again, look at that pin work. Look at that marker work. Look at that, whatever they used, paintbrush with the finest tips, those type things. Now you got people running the speed lines. He's already seeing the monkey beast in the tree line. You're already seeing a bunch of blood splatter up here. You know, you can see the monkey emerging as he's trying to get people to stop. He finally makes it down there to that spot, and there's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, possibly more dead people. As he reaches the clearing from the base right there. Again, fast forward, chapter 7. They're realizing they've got to make a stand of some sort. They count 8 more dead, so I was wrong on my count. There's 8 more dead people, is what they're counting here. As everybody reaches, as the rest of them reach now they're looking for people. Trying to figure out who's still alive, who's dead. So they're calling out. Again, your typical manga looks on the faces and things like that. And people are starting to come out of the tree line. And they're talking about everybody's dead. One guy's hurt here. And he says, "Why, God? Why is all this happening?" And we ask that a lot. We ask of God, why do things happen? Again, now we're on chapter 8. We're still trying to get away, climbing the summit. We're looking at a potential of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in this picture. So we don't know exactly how many people are left yet. Getting drinks of water. But again, look at the detail. I mean, just the detail alone in this is very awesome. So, we're going to move along because, this is where they use those panel shadings and things like that. I'm going to show you this right. Again, this could all be in Procreate or a different program, but you can see this shadowing right here. Right here. This is a overlay type of shadowing that they've got going on in this picture. It's just phenomenal stuff. In fact, I've got an old Antarctic Press book that actually has these templates and stuff like that in it for Photoshop and things like that that you can overlay into your pictures for manga style work. And so that's very cool. It's an old book. I can't exactly remember when it was made, but it's in my library in there, and it's got the CD with it, and have I used it? Of course I have, many times. And now we're at chapter 9, the front peak 5, and we see how many people are technically left here. We're going to try and count them up with our little handy dandy little piece here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Potential of 15 people left out of the 36 that was left originally. But you see those people right there. Again, details, folks. If you can get those details in your work, get those details in your work. So, they're wanting to take a breather, even though they know that the beast is still behind them. And a lot of people are like, what? We're taking a breather right now? No. Some people are like, I'm dying here. I can't walk anymore. Like this poor little guy up here. It's 5:08 p.m. And we aren't even there yet. Then you got some guys, taking a smoke break, checking their feet, all that good stuff. But again, your manga style work is all in here. This guy that's puffing on his cigarette, some people don't like. Um, now they've got more than one team, you know, and they've taken a little bit of a break, and now they're going to try and fight this thing. I did go ahead and print out the entire chapter 10. You know, as the beast approaches, they decide they're going to stand and fight. This is one of your typical manga poses whenever a group gets together and they're going to take on an opponent. As you see the beast coming up towards the group, the party, they all have stones in hand. They all are encouraged that they can actually, in fact, win this battle against this beast. So they start chunking rocks, telling it to get out of here, get lost. None of their rocks are hitting its mark, but the beast does go ahead and turn around. As he turns around, the next thing they see is a bow and arrow. So this is a smart beast. And they're like, what? Well, next thing you know, somebody throws a rock. It hits the beast in the bow and arrow. I think that's what happens here. No, he shoots it. He lets the arrow go. And it hits its mark. In between the two ladies down here. You think it hits her, but then your next shot is everybody gasping, and then it sees it hit into the rocks in between the two ladies. So nobody's dead from this grouping just yet. But I'm loving the action now that we're getting into. You know, full on action, all of the good stuff that you want to see in manga. All the action, the speed, the just the different things happening, the fast paced action as you read through here. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's more, you know, just all of this action happening with all of the, you know, action words and things like that happening in here. And he gets a good shot in on the beast. The beast goes ahead and shoots some more arrows. They're missing their mark 100%. Now they're devising a plan, what they can do right here. They go to the boulder. They roll this boulder. It's going. This boulder is going. The speed lines, the action, the pen and ink work, very awesome stuff. Next thing we know, we see it all rumbling down here, and then there's just a big cloud of smoke down here as they think they've won. Where'd the monkey go? Careful, it can still hit us. The sun is coming up on the horizon. No monkey to be seen. Then they've got one guy with a broken leg. They've got another person who is possibly dead. And this is how it ends right here on this particular book. So we have to wait for volume 2 to come out to find out what happens. Because did the monkey do this? Is the question as we end this book. It says it was the monkey that did this? Question mark. Are you sure, Satch? What is it, Mayada? As he's looking down at the body. Questioning. Was it human that did this in our party? Or was it the actual monkey beast? But all in all, Monkey Peak Volume 1 is a success in my opinion. Like I said, I would have loved to have seen, you know, the red carried throughout the book. That's just my opinion for it. And but you know, all in all, great book. It's something that I'll probably end up going to find to see if I can find all 10 books out there, you know, separate from the volume. But if I can only pick up the volume, then I'll pick up the volume, because it is a good book. It is a good read, and it wants and leads me to want that volume 2. Is it 20 chapters long? You know, are there 20 comic books or mangas out there of this book? You know, that's the big question right now. But all in all, great line work, great visuals, um, great character development. Uh, you don't get a whole lot of insight. I mean, there is a whole lot more to this book. Like I said, it's 220 pages long just for volume 1, and I did not print out everything. You know, I could have, but I didn't. Um, so all in all, great read, great book. I would recommend it, highly recommended. Just like most of the other Antarctic Press books, there's not a super bad one out in the book or out in the bunch. Um, just find your niche with Antarctic Press. They've got something for everybody, and they keep adding new titles on a regular basis from new people as well. So they also envision older stuff. Like I said, this was originally printed back in 2017 under a different company. It's all under Antarctic Press now, and so go find some of these books. You know that Antarctic Press does. Go look at their library of of their vast library of what they have to offer. And I'm going to do the same. You know, I'm going to get back into some of their books. I'm going to go try and find all the original Warrior Nun Ariellas, and then they had a Pixie book as well that I'm very interested in. So, but that is my review. Well done for this group that created it, and I'm going to pull it back up so I can get the name correct. Again, one of my favorite panels of the whole book right here as the creature goes by. This was created again by Koji Shinosaka, and artwork by Akiro Kumeda, translation Andrew Hall, Phase 6, and lettering Alfred Perez. So go find Monkey Peak Volume 1, or if you can find the originals, you can go to Antarctic Press and find it as well. But if you can happen to find the originals out there, let me know where you found them at, and I might go try and find them myself. You know, I have a Books A Million here that might actually have them here. I don't know. But we'll see. But that is my review of Monkey Peak Volume 1. 220 pages long. Very, very well done. Got my interest, and I'm ready for Volume 2. So, as I like to say as I leave you guys, go get some Antarctic Press, and we will catch you on the flip side. Have a good day, everybody.